Get here sooner, but I didn't.
Seems like so. Sit down, or anybody else does.
Yeah, here, I'll set it up.
I think I'll take this and then come back to that before we go anyplace else. This is the main.
Okay, you want this here, right here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get back so you can get. I usually start here with a group because this is the first construction, and my father was still living when we built this, and his brother who made it for me. But it didn't look like this when my Uncle Fred made it. It was a lily pool, and that, as I said, my father was living, and he died in 1935, so you know this is back a long time ago. And so just imagine it as a lily pool and the goldfish in it. And it was real nice. My mother was living, and she liked it too. But while I was teaching there at Osborne, a little boy, a little brother of the older one that I had in high school, and he drowned in their lily pool, and we just was so shocked, felt so badly. And when I told Mother about it, she said, well, I just wish we'd fill this up. She says, I worry about it, and children want to play around, and so we filled it up. And I got my Uncle Fred, who was a stonemason in the early day here, and he was getting up in years, and when I asked him if he'd fill it up for me, he said, yes, but you'll have to help me. So that's when I first became interested in mixing a little cement. And so
that was the beginning of your
got
project.
it filled up, and it was, we all enjoyed it until that accident happened. And another thing, we had an invasion of frogs, and they are pretty disturbing, as you may know. So this is the way it is now, but after we filled it up, I decided I wanted to have a little backyard pool. That was before we had the Wilson Lake, now it's called Wilson Lake. But I built this. It's a little hamburger stand, and see the little ducks and the boats I made. That's the first real sculpturing I did.
Is the boats?
Those little
Ducks?
Ducks, yes. You helped me. And that lighthouse is kind of out of character, but there's a lady in the Swanee Journal who wrote this up, said that geography wasn't just my hallmark, that I like to put things just however they happen to come. If Colorado isn't next to Canada, well, that's all right. We can still have Eisenhower Mountain up there. And so I want you to think of these different things as postcards. This postal card now would be of my Kansas postal card of Wilson Lake. And this was a little park I made that you could cross on that little bridge. And where was Moses? And the bulrushes. I have to have some help, girls. So, but that, I didn't give it enough water for a while. As you know, this has been a hot, dry summer. So it doesn't look very pretty right now. I believe I've told you now about the beginning of this.
The first piece you made is this one,
What you say, Marge?
Is it?
You knew Christine, and I want you to see this rock here. See that circular rock?
Did you get that,
Isn't
Joanne?
that pretty? Liv.
Uh-huh.
And I brought quite a number of rocks from up there, but that's one I used in this, and the rest of them are the Delhi rocks.
Oh, is that right?
You know where Delhi is.
Yes, I do.
And I brought quite a number of rocks from Delhi earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Where is my photographer?
And then she's right. I think that would be.
I said we ought to have a place to sit when we had the lily pool over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we built this then. My father was still living at that time when we built this seat. I added the little planter for the chrysanthemums later, and I want to connect it with this. Quite a number of people, especially men, ask about this, and they're called core.
These little rocks here.
Yes,
Core?
Fowler, not a Fowler that ever lived in Lucas, but a Fowler from Hutchinson. He built the road to Wilson Lake from Sylvan, and he rented mother's apartment there for a while. And when he left, he said, "Would you like to have some of the core from that job over there?" And I said, "Why, if they'll stick to cement, or cement will stick to them rather." And they said, or he said, "Well, that's what they're made for." So he brought me quite a load of them, and I made this little bridge of them. And also that planter you can see from over there. I made that later of the rest of them. And now I believe we'll go on and catch the rest of this.
That was the best thing to put.
Yes. It's low, you see. And that's higher back there. And it's filled in my landscape, you might say.
Just completed your piece. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And now I'd rather go on with the rest of this.
Okay.
Here. That little castle down there really has nothing to do with the Pueblo. The lady who wrote it up for the Salina Journal asked about those, and she said that's just more of your fancy. And I said yes, that little castle and all was just for decoration. And just like this lighthouse here was made from rock from the lake up there where Christine lived, Glen Elder Lake. I don't know if I can say the name of it. Curwin, right at Curwin anyway, it's called Curwin. I brought those from there. So this is just more or less decoration for ducks.
More fill-in.
And now Indian Pueblo. It isn't the kind that comes from that from Four Corners. We'll come to Four Corners back there. It's from Colorado, the same state, but it's not in ruins. They built it, I think they built it after it's restored. And I took it from a postcard from Colorado Springs after I visited there. And as you know, an Indian Pueblo was built for a number of families of Indians. And I've always intended to get a statue of an Indian there so that you know what it is for sure. If I don't name it a Pueblo, a number of people ask me, and you'll see the cross at the top of the tower. And that down below that tower was their, what we call our church. They called it a keep, I believe. And they always had a watchman up there at the top of the tower on the lookout. And it's thought that they weren't bothered much because these Indians that lived in these Pueblos were way back when. They're before the civilization started. They were before the age of baskets and before the age of pottery. And we don't know why they had to be on the watch all the time, because they really weren't bothered a good deal in the early day. Later on, they may have been frightened away. Anyway, as you know, the people from those Pueblos moved. We don't know where they went, and we don't know why they went. And all our Pueblos weren't discovered till, a long time later, just early in the 20th century, did they discover the Pueblos in ruins, most of them. But as I said, this one's been restored. And that'll tie up with Four Corners back there. But you'll have to excuse having more than one scene from Colorado.
Yes.
As you know, that was our favorite
home.
rocks I have. And by the way, I didn't steal any rocks, but these especially I paid for. They're from Mexico, but they had them to sell in Estes Park. You can see, take those two alike, you see those heads that have been sculptured in them up there. Those were bookends. And so I just bought a number of bookends to make this of. And that Cathedral Mountain in the Tetons in Wyoming was really just about that shape. And I thought it's a beautiful mountain. So anything from near Colorado in that part of the country is my favorite. Well, now we'll move on to, if I forget the name of this, everybody else can tell, I guess. Friend to me, and she's down at KU. And I told her, I said, I made Jefferson's head first because I didn't think many people knew just what he looked like. And they probably couldn't tell from my sculpture of it. But so I made his first, and I still have Roosevelt's to put in, Teddy. And but I haven't been able to work at it recently, but I hope to get it done this winter. And but Barbara Brackman encouraged me. She said, well, anybody know Washington and Lincoln now that you have them made. And I can't keep them in perfect shape because if you've ever put anything out in the weather, you know how it can weather. And I just can't always keep them painted just as they ought to be. Parts of one eye I see have been kind of washed out there, but I enjoyed making them. It takes me about a year to make one of those larger heads, but the Roosevelt's head will be up the same size as Jefferson's. It won't take quite so long. I just get at it. And if you have any questions you want to ask before I go on, you say so. I try to answer them. And then this over here is in honor of General Eisenhower when he was, after he completed his work in the World War. He was so appreciated as general, but not until later they put this up in Canada. It used to be called Castle Mountain, but it's difficult, I know, to make it beautiful as it really is. The picture in my art book isn't so beautiful. It looks about like, I got it about like it is in the art book, but they say it is just very, very beautiful. And it just kind of stands alone. It's in the Canadian Rocky Mountains and up there in the Lake Louise district where so many people go to visit, but a number of people have never heard of it until recently, since they've been celebrating you know all about that, how much people have learned to love him more than ever. Everybody liked Eisenhower, didn't they, in Kansas? And but he is respected more and more, and I'm so glad I was able to get that made when I was real strong. Did you have any questions or anything before we move to the and go the other way? Test this, just like I did these. They're onyx, but they came from Mexico, and I've got two anyway on this one. If I'd been making more trips, I could have had more of those onyx rocks to put in here. But the trips ended to Estes, and so did the getting of more rocks end. And so now, but out here, because you see, you have a lot of white rock. Is it turned on now?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I believe that if you don't mind, I'll tell you about my favorite up here first, and because I've had to finish this recently, didn't have in between, but this is my favorite, and I worked the harvest on it because it's Long's Peak. See, that's Long's Peak right there, and you've heard of the notch. Have you girls been out there? Are you familiar with Long's Peak? And the notch, they say, looks like an animal. So I used a little sculpture of an animal to put up there for the notch. But you'll notice that I've used all white rock or shells. That way they stay white. And I wish I could have brought more white rock when I was at it. And this is Mount Hood over here. And let's see. Maybe I won't be able to say the name of them right now, but these are the rest of the Long's Peak group right here. Hello there.
Hi.
And now at the foot, this was our view, Christine's and my view, from our cabin, 1.5 miles away. It just was angled like this. And we could see this especially at night because they have their electric lights. They have everything up there just as if it were a community. It is a community, but it isn't like a city like Estes Park, but it's the YMCA conference camp. And maybe you've been there, some of you. But we'd go up there every summer. We just loved that. We didn't get up to the top of Long's Peak. It wasn't climbed by as many people as it is anymore. I guess they have it more available, so that one can get up there. But this is the administration building. It's such a miniature that it's hard to see. Am I in the way of it? This is the administration building. That's the dining where you can go in for meals, dining area. And this is a little chapel. And the Mentholatum Company put that up there years ago. And then I just made suggestions of cabins. They have many of them around there, and they rent them. And so many young people go out there for a conference camp of some kind and have such a good time. And so this was our view, Christine's and my view, from our cabin. I'm going to catch this. This is new. That's shiprock in New Mexico. I'll tie that in with the four corners. But Tim Swimmer made this. I made all of this part myself except just a few things. Tim made this shiprock, and he made the cacti, we'll see later, and goes back of it. But other than that, all of this in the part of the rock garden here I made myself. And now this was rather low-lying in here, I completed that quite a long time ago. This was here, but I had flowers in it. But I'll tell you, girls, flowers don't do too well right in with cementy rock. They burn. And so I put fewer and fewer, and one of my brothers, they are always helpful. They said, well, sis, we think it looks better without the flowers. They can get some burn. And so since then I haven't, I've decided to put this into rocks. So this is part of the four corners right here. This is Utah back in there, and the rest of this is besides Arizona. They border, I believe. Arizona's on the south, and what other state did I say? I can't.
Arizona.
It's back of Arizona. They border Utah. Now, I'm still working on this some, building it up, because it's called the Red Rock Country of Arizona. But in my art book, it just all looks yellow or tan. And I thought, well, it's kind of rather queer to call it Red Rock Country, not see any red. So maybe we have too much red. I don't know. I had David and Kim paint some more down here, and I painted more up here. But they have the red in the shadows. I believe the sun is so bright that it looks more this color in the sun. Well, where your pictures, sometimes the sun's up and sometimes it's down, well, you can't just make the shadows for every visitor that comes. The shadows have to be. And so I made the rocks that just barely show the red. And I know these look this color in the art book.
What did you use to make your indentations into those rocks? What did you use to make your indentations into your cement there, into those rocks?
The indentation? I think Tim made that after there, made these three in this group. And I think he just used his trowel to make them. But he wasn't afraid to make them deep, and I was glad that he had the courage to. I was afraid if I made them that deep, the cement would crack. Well, I guess not. And this is the creek in the picture, but I want it as a path. It's called Oak Creek Canyon, and the creek would be right down here. But and this would be a trail. I want to go over that with black again, but it's a trail. So I believe that's all I have about that.
She'll tell you when to go for it.
Okay. This the cacti that represent, this is Arizona on this side, and Utah is on the border. And maybe you can answer the question. I really don't know. This is Capitol Reef. See the Capitol? That's just natural. I mean, that dome, not the Capitol. It's the dome for the Capitol. And I had that made for something else, and so I told him I'd use that for the dome of Capitol Reef. And these have a name, I think, they're close to it. I can't think of the name of them right now. But this group, I thought it was in Utah when we made it. Do any of you know where Capitol Reef is, whether it's in Utah or Arizona?
No,
well, it's in that part of the country anyway. Except...
Well, you need to tell them that.
Yes.
Because they look, that looks like something you brought in from the pasture.
Well, that's out in that part of the country somewhere, I think. Remember which state it's in. I did work real hard on that. There's a lot of carving and all. But I think it's in Arizona somewhere, I'm sure. And all of that, this is Arizona, except Utah is back made at the same time, or about the same time, I built these. Oh, these are all made of cement, and then I just put the rocks in. I used rods to support them, and that place there, I don't know if I told you about the eagle.
No.
I enjoyed making the ducks so much that when the opportunity came, I made the eagle. But I'll tell you how I happened to do that. This used to be just a little bird feeder on top of it. And I was so thankful for my brothers. They're much younger than I, but they didn't live to be so old, and they're both gone. But one of them, well, both of them were very frank. They never minded asking me questions or telling me if they didn't like anything. And one day, my brother Grant said, "Sis, that bird feeder looks out of character up there above the Long's Peak." And I said, "Well, you're right." And so I got to thinking, and I thought, well, an eagle, the American eagle, would be far more in order. So I thought, well, I'll just have to try to make an eagle. So I worked on that real hard. That's before I started on the four heads.
Well, what's your framework in there? What did you use as a base?
I used 2 or 3 compasses, I think, and let's see, what else? It's been quite a while since I made it, but I know I used a compass or two, and
Did you use a shoe?
shoehorn.
framework?
I used the shoe horns in the heads.
Is that right?
I don't remember that I used any here, but I used quite a few things like the compass. I can't think right now what.
What?
Then I told you Tim made the shipwreck, and he sculptured that, I think, because the back of the rock's different color. Some way and he sculptured those out. I don't think he didn't make that of cement. It's a regular rock.
Is this a rock that's typical of Kansas here?
This is a Delhi rock.
Oh.
Yes, that's a Delhi rock. Those brown ones came from Schwimmer's farm. They just put those in recently. But this is one of there are no black people here. Well, I don't think I'll.
No.
I didn't think about that having any race prejudice significance. Everybody calls them that. But I found out it does. So
It does.
I don't use that term. And they told me the technical name for it, but I'll tell you, I can't think of it right now. But they came from Delhi up here. And I just love those rocks. That's from Delhi. This is from Delhi. This is from Delhi. Now that's an iron rock, I think. I don't know whether that came from Schwimmer's or not, but all these newer ones out here did. And that I know came from around Lucas. Let's see. I have a little rock from one of my great aunt's farm, but I think it came loose. I haven't got it put in.
I'm still a little curious
it
about
turned
your
off?
eagle. What did you use for the eyes of the eagle?
The eagle's.
Eyes. I noticed you got them. Looks like
Well, they
glasses.
tell me that in these sculptures you don't use anything for the eyes. It's just, I had to give up on it too as a pool, so we'll
Well, you want to tell us what you were starting out to do with it? That it just hasn't gotten done?
No, it was a pool,
Uh-huh.
and it leaks. I lined it. If you might want to remember this, the limestone, if you make a pool of it, it'll leak. You've got to cover it over with cement after you get it made. And I turn the hose in this, and that water's all this. That's what I use it for now. You don't need to put that on the recorder.
Was limestone porous? Is that why the water seeps out? If you just had that all limestone?
That's right. It just seeps out water. So good thing to have there, so I just I filled it up last night. But that tree that someone told me once, that looked in here and said, well, you have one pretty tree, referred to that one. It's a pretty tree, but it certainly makes a lot of
Yes,
mess. Thank you. I cleaned this out before the last visitors came, I think, but it soon fills up again. Well, I might tell you before we move, this is all new. The older I get, the less I can water, as you know, and all I saved of them was the iris. We love the iris. My mother loved the iris, and one of the last work that she ever did in the garden was to transplant some of the iris that are out there. And they are beautiful in the spring. Then I kind of wanted to build this like the English gardens, and as you know, they use boxwood. So if you have imaginations, your imagination's strong enough, you can just see all this as boxwood and English form of garden. The rest of it would be in flowers or rocks or something else, but they always had the boxwood to go clear around it, but I just used it on the one side. And, so all these iris beds remind me of my mother. I don't know if I should say this while you were here, Lucas people. I tell people out of town that there was a time when all this block on this side and that side, except the Gilbrists who lived there and later Harry Mansfield, the Scrivenses there, and Mrs. Scrivens' mother and father clear up the Harrises up where Mrs. Lundgren lives. All the rest of these houses that were built at that time, and weren't all built, were bars and Deebles. And I think that's why I am interested in trying to leave a few rocks or something of the kind to remind people that the bars and Deebles used to live here. I'm the only one left, except there are 2 second cousins around. I tell people who don't live here about it, I guess not everybody here knows it, but my grandparents and bars lived on that side, and they had lots for Chester, Harry, and Floyd. Harry never used his, but the house that where Mr. Steiner used to live, I can't think. And they have now these people who bought it have lived it. K-18. Some of my best friends, I can't think of their names sometimes.
Dwayne Urban.
Urban?
Dwayne Urban?
Yes. And Floyd Barr built that house where they lived. And then my grandfather's house was torn down, was clear up on the corner. And my grandfather had evergreens all over. He had a big yard and a lot of evergreens. So you see why I love evergreen, and have as many as I have. And then on this side of the street, my grandparents, Deeples, lived where Alfred and his wife, X-Men, lived today. And this house wouldn't have been in here. The Browns, Clark Brown, Lucy's father and mother built it, but there wasn't room for it. So my father sold one of our lots to make room enough for it. And I'm glad I don't have it because I can't keep the weeds down on what I have. And it made room for that. So that house has been put in. The little house that stood there on that lot is where I was born. And when my folks built this one, they had that one taken away like you would a little house that what do you call these houses that are on wheels? They just attached to a
Trailer house.
trailer house, like a trailer house, and carried it away. And I was on the front porch, and Father and Mother, and I began to cry. Oh, there goes our house, our home. And my father picked me up and held me. So that's how old this house is. I thought I was 3, but they have on the books it was built in 1906. So I don't know which. Oh, I think that's all the history I want to give you. Have you run out of film?
She hasn't run out of film yet.
We need to head back.
Well, we haven't gotten to the new edition here. Is it turned off? Oh.
Just keep leading the way.
Now, let's see. I haven't talked about this to anybody hardly, so we're going to do. We call this our limestone edition anyway, and as you see, the zinnias froze and the dahlias froze and the cannas froze, but the chrysanthemums are still here, and you should get a picture from the other side because the flowers are prettier on the other side.
Yes.
These, what do Gary and Carol call those
Periwinkle?
flowers that they sell at decoration time, those larger containers? Anyway,
French garden?
I believe
have a
so.
lot of-
I bought 3 of those, and these chrysanthemums were just little plants. It's amazing how the chrysanthemums grew. And the white ones didn't bloom, and then if you get a thing that catch that pink one, it's real pretty. Right there is the pink one. And a few of the other flowers, the periwinkles, some of them still alive. I didn't know what some of these were when I put them in. I didn't know what color they were all. Now this chrysanthemum, let's see, that whole thing grew one of those tiny little plants. And it's full of buds. They aren't open. As you see, these flowers, they're froze. I got this stuff cut off. And the geraniums that I had in these 2 urns on the weekend, they either got too hot for them or else they got crowded out. I don't know. Also, there's a few
Marigold.
what is it?
Marigold?
Marigolds. I can't always see any flowers.
Well, you have so many.
There were 2 dahlias down here that were white. I hate to see them freeze. They were real pretty.
Well, it's October.
Can you tell us how you made your planter?
What is it?
How did you make these
Oh,
on your end?
I used
How
well,
this
for
came
2 of
about?
them, I used bushel baskets. This was made of 3 parts of bird bags or something I had, and I just cemented them together. I had these made from something else, and this I made myself. That license planter in a bushel basket was a swimmer's mate, but they made just the way I told them to. And I forgot to tell them about a drain in it, so they had to bore that in there later because the water just stood in it. But I asked them to bring it out here and then the idea that we could make something round. these mostly are spring flowers. And I try to, they try to help keep the weeds out. But it's been so hot this summer, I didn't give them too much water, just enough to keep the iris alive. And these are
blooming.
But this time of the year,
these are peas.
But
And
that's
yes, that's
why.
moving out of season. I'm glad you noticed that. I used my hose to water it a little bit. I was proud of it. Blooming in the fall.
Yeah, that's
Well, let
unbelievable.
you know what's out here. And I guess we're about ready to go to the entrance.
Hearing what you say in the shade there,
If
it's
we
hard
had
to
started
know.
with
we'll get all the pictures.
coming here like the KU folks do, but they didn't stop here. They came on up to the door, but they didn't see it. We always want to get the ending back to the beginning, so I taught. And so, you want to get this next?
She's already, you tell us about it. She's
Have
already,
you taken a picture of it? She's taking a picture.
right now. Tell us what your idea about this is.
I wanted to fill this in, and I thought, well, the other day, a young man and a young lady came to visit me from KU, and he's working on, I think, his dissertation. And they weren't married; they were just young people. I always liked to see them. They liked each other. They were real fond of one another. And but he wants to get his dissertation written, and he's going to write it on the life of Samuel Dinsmore.
Oh my goodness.
Thought maybe I could help him with it, and so I really did. I think the next week after they were here, Don Wilcox had his article in the paper, and he told us quite a bit about Samuel Dinsmore, and then he told us about the book that Dean Books put out. I have a copy of that, but I wouldn't want to even lend it. I'm afraid I might lose it. I refer to it so often. But I had Carolyn send him a copy of that and mark it, because I said that would help him a lot. He wanted me to tell him anything I could about Samuel Dinsmore. And so I thought, well, then when they got ready to go, they asked me what my name was. And I thought, well, my name ought to be here. So I wanted something there to keep the weeds down anyway, to tell you the truth. So they had built this, and I thought, well, that'd be a good place. And a few weeks ago, it's in 1991, first the four corners, I thought, in my art book, that's all I have to do with him when he has the material. I always said I'm going to put this under it then. So, the flubber was, and so they had plenty of cement mixed. And they said, you should try, you put four corners, and so I did. And then it ties in with what we have up there, shipped on. Then, did you take the picture?
Got your name. In the four corners.
And the last thing then in our review of this is name
From your
people
left.
from here, but she came back again after she been on the stage. She said, "Do you know of any other place in this part of the state?" And I said, "Well, I suppose you got Inez Marshall at Fortis." "No." She said, "We don't have her. What does she have?" Well, I told her about the limestone rock, and so, but she, I guess, couldn't go at that time. She was going to make a trip back. So I had written her a letter in the meantime. I don't know how I happened to, but I wrote her a letter saying that I got them answered better. And so when she came back, that's about the first place she went, over there. And Inez Marshall had been kind of critical of her, and she was a little timid about anybody that came she didn't know. So she said to her, when this lady asked to see her rocks and everything, asked her if she could come in and see them, and she said, well, do you have any identification with you? And like we said, I had your letter in my pocketbook. So she said, I got it out, and you'd written to me about Inez Marshall, how often you visited her and everything. And she said Inez Marshall looked at it, she smiled, she said, come in. Said she was just lovely to us. But, you know, some people were critical, and the critics said she'd had that car made by machinery and a lot of things like that. And I'd have been a little timid too, I think. Anybody from New York, she didn't know her. And Bethel Hagen from New York said she was just lovely to me after that, and I saw everything, and she's a lovely lady. She was just showing that she was a little bit wise too, I think, and she had the right to ask for identification. I thought, well, a person can learn from her. I'm glad it's nothing else on her. But she was a nice person. She spent her whole lifetime on that. You know, she was poorly, and for a while, and her father got her interested in it. Get the rock for her, and those little figures of the Bible, they're pretty young thing. I like that. The Last Supper, that was on my favorites. Look through those windows, I recall, and see those little figures of the 12 disciples. If I get my Bible story mixed up, you correct me.
Well, that's what it is. It's a pretty good-sized building that those sit in.
Yes, well, it had to be. She had to carve inside that building, and it had to be.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. Maybe she set those figures in there. I don't know.
The opening maybe was large enough so she could.
I think I was told that it takes 6 people to haul or carry that.
Oh, I don't doubt that. And
And
the limestone she uses is from over by Smith Center, did she tell you that? She wants a special kind of limestone. It's either easier to sculpture or lasts forever or something. I don't know why, but it's a higher quality, she says, than that over Boston. So all that limestone came, I think, from Smith Center.
but she did this like a full time.
Yes.
That's about all she.
That's all she did. She now her arm, one arm got so she could hardly use it, and I thought that it was from the sculpturing, but later somebody said that was from that trouble she had when she was young. So I really don't know for sure about her physical condition, but I know that arm for a while was almost helpless. And I just thought it was from all that sculpturing of that rock. But I guess she was in poor health, and I know she had this trouble when she was young, and her father wanted to interest her in something because she was going to have to be an invalid for a while. So he brought the rock and got her started on it. She was kind of artistic to begin with. But there were critics, of course. There were critics in Osborne. If you buy these, some of those Osborne people may say to me, well, somebody had to.
Well,
I'm glad
we'll see you guys later, Son. This is fun.